Hi, Peter Hayden here, and I help guide organisations in unlocking potential of data, analytics and AI within the Microsoft ecosystem. And in today's video, I want to take you through a way to think about how to estimate your analytics or AI project, or what you need to do to approach that rather than sort of fine detail. And I call this the good, better, best model. And so I want to step you through what this looks like when we think about what does good look like, what is better, and what is best. And I've spent over 10 years helping estimate all sorts of projects. And this holds true in most cases, whether you're doing analytics projects, whether you're doing AI projects, data integration, data migration, anything in this sort of sphere and beyond, not just limited to data analytics and AI. And so when I talk to clients about this, I guess where this starts from, the questions I get asked invariably comes down to, well, how much is this going to cost? They've got some ideas in mind, what they want to achieve. Sometimes their details aren't quite well formed. Sometimes they're well articulated and quite simple. It's that piece of string type of question. How long is a piece of string? How long is it going to take? And unless you know some information about that, it can be very difficult, or it could be really easy, again, depending on the context. So that's probably number one to think about looking at which way to go is, how much information do you know on what you need to achieve? I'll give you a really simple example. If you're looking to deploy, say, Power BI, and you don't have Power BI currently, and you just want to turn on the required tenancy and deploy a data gateway, for example, that's a pretty well-defined type outcome that you're looking to achieve. If, on the other hand, you're looking to understand, well, I want to create a report, but I know it connects to SQL Server and I don't know what data fields are needed, or I don't know what's on the report, that's really difficult, because that might depend, you'll need to determine the effort required to do that. And when I think about estimating, there's two things I like to think about. One is, well, there's a effort required by people to create that outcome. And the other is then any other costs associated with that. So it might be licensing, might be additional infrastructure you need to make that happen. And so quite often organizations are at, and it'll depend on their own business, I guess, rules around what they need to do. But sometimes organizations are looking for what you call a rough order magnitude. And this is where good fits in. I need to understand roughly, what does this need to look like in terms of cost, versus something really detailed that is best under the best type of approach. Detailed dollars you need versus the rough order magnitude. And so, and better sort of in between. So depending on how well things are defined and what type of level information you need, determines which of these three approaches are going to work well for you. So the way I approach this is that in the good, you are after that rough order magnitude amount of dollars. That might be used to at least gauge or get some executive buy-in around what is the investment that might need to make. Now, at this stage, typically, there might be very unclear requirements, or where we need to think about what it is you're trying to achieve, or what does good look like in the first instance, or maybe also something sort of, I wouldn't say simple, but when you've got simple to moderate you can use this approach as well in terms of complexity. So, like I said before, it's like a Power BI foundation. That could be really simple because you'll have a service provider. That's the world I live in, is providing these services to clients. We have a good idea of what that would take based on some simple questions, and the licensing is usually fairly straightforward as well through a conversation to determine that. And that might be perfect for what you need, and that ROM, rough order magnitude, it could be plus or minus 10 to 20%. When you've got simple, if it's more complex than that, variance might be larger. In more complex scenarios though, where you may not have, like that example with a report that is undefined, or maybe it's an AI project and it's a new initiative, it's sort of really hard because the solution isn't quite clear. It's tended to happen a lot when you've got lots of, say, Azure services that is really hard to quantify. Understanding that this figure you get, dollar figure, is going to be wider. That could be even up to, say, 30% variance on what they'll look like, simply because the amount of estimation required can be quite difficult based on that complexity. So in terms of good, if all you're after is, look, here it is, we're not going to hold, make any major decisions based on that, but we can use it to kind of qualify whether we invest further in a project, can work. But understand that if you're whether you're doing it yourself or engaging a partner, it's not going to be a lot of detail, and you understand that it is just enough information to help you make some really early decisions. So again, using things like online calculators to do that, like an Azure calculator, for example, and then again, estimation is going to be in terms of time. You get some inputs, but it's going to be the energy into that isn't going to be a lot. Okay, so that's good, and it's good because it gives you a sense of some answer to the question, well, what's this going to look like in terms of time and cost? Then we get to better, and better is really useful for clients who do want to know, well, I need something better, more than a rough order magnitude. I don't have a lot of detailed costs, but I need something more refined. I need to have a better, clear idea of what it's going to cost before we go into it. And they still might have the same problem around requirements, and complexity might be maybe more unknown, so maybe slightly high complexity, so unclear requirements, so unclear or highly complex, but the rough order magnitude is too wide. We want to get some more certainty on that, so that refined dollar figure. And the way I like to approach that or suggest to clients is go through some level of discovery with an expert or some sort of assessment. And that's really powerful because what that does, and oops, I did not spell assessment correct. But if you do this, expect to pay some sort of service fee for that, because again, if you're engaging in a partner, like the organization I work for, then it's consulting. It's access to individuals who have experience in going through requirements, building a bit of an architecture, having workshops, and understanding what it is you're trying to do. And what they're trying to do is go from unclear requirements and high complexity to developing a set of knowns, or set of requirements that they can line up, then that time, and then other costs, say licensing. That's quite negligible cost. I won't suggest how long it takes because it does depend on the scenario, but that's a really good way to help you understand as an output then what a more deep refined is. So this will be much more certain, and it still may be a estimate at this stage, but you'll find that this will usually be a kind of plus or minus 10%, or might be enough, depending if it's moderate complexity or moderate requirements, be able to then estimate what this would look like in terms of time and licensing to do that. And this is a really good approach to take, because it's short and sharp, gives you a plan, and saves you a lot of time doing the research yourself. And that's the other alternative way. If you're doing this all in-house, expect to spend the time using your business analysts, using your solution architects, if you have those resources available, to go through the effort of scoping that out and providing that. So a good way to think about these is that better versus good is certainly quick. Better is kind of, it's not quick, but it's accelerated. It's probably the best way to think about it. And let's turn our attention to best. And best is a bit more methodical, right? I'm not call it slow, but it certainly takes more time. This is maybe more considered. And so, while I'd say the majority of clients I work with, that better approach where we go through a discovery and assessment, a little bit of design, works really well. It's kind of the middle of the road. But if you're doing something that's really highly complex and maybe have lots of requirements, the requirements either may be unclear or might be very complicated or high demand, or highly detailed. There's lots of things, or maybe lots of uncertainty around what it is you need to build. Maybe there's a lot of moving parts. Maybe the architecture is very complex. Then this is where I really suggest you can do the discovery and assessment, and that will become part of it. But really, the focus of this is to, particularly about things like what Azure services look like and what that run cost looks like, is to look at things like prototypes, so actually building something, or even or the term that's used as an MVP, minimum viable product, to build something out. So you are building and run. And in this case, again, expect to pay probably a bit more than a discovery or assessment, but again, you'll get more better outcomes. And what that does is allows you to go to measure and baseline what that run cost looks like. And run cost will also then, based on actually then say building out, say an AI project and developing a use case, there's all the lessons learned around readiness of data, skills of people in-house, integration with systems that might mean that, we've done the first one and we knew, wow, that was more complex than we expected, maybe it's easier than expected, and lets you really get into more detailed project planning around understanding, we have a better idea now. Again, we started small. We didn't think about building, this end-to-end or a massive of projects, but it gives you a taste of what that is without spending a lot more energy than committing to large-scale projects, and lets you then understand what's really involved and give you options around, say, doing some skills, doing technology investments, without having to spend all of that, so committed already. That approach works really well also when you need to have that level of detail and give a real good measurement of cost. So in these three approaches, good, better, best, the good method is really good if you really just want to understand high level, what does this look like if we were to go down this path, but it's not going to give you an accurate view of what that may end up being relevant to your organization, because it's really done through a couple of conversations and then some calculation methods based on past projects, and which you may have experience for inside your organization with any of these, right? This is part of the value of getting engaging partners and getting a time and, you know, what the things that Azure services might look like. Better, go through a discovery assessment, good way to understand more detail and get something more refined without being too much involved to help you qualify it further. And then the best approach, actually running things on the ground, measuring the results, whether it's working with the teams, deploying services, or running, say, Azure services that you can use to measure baseline and then predict what that is going forward. So I hope that was useful to understand, I guess, some ways to think about as you're considering your analytics or AI project going forward. Certainly, if you are in Australia and would like to chat more, please reach out to me on the contact details in the notes of this video. Please make sure you subscribe if you'd like to see more of this type of content they'll be putting out, and I'll look forward to talking to you next time.